Before you go to dunk that cookie in your coffee, there's something you absolutely have to know. 8 of the most popular American cookie brands are packed with ingredients that will shock you. We're talking about sugar levels that can send your blood glucose through the roof, oils that doctors warn against, and ingredient lists longer than your grocery store receipt. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly which cookies you should put right back on the shelf. This is an especially important message for seniors and anyone keeping an eye on their sugar intake. Stick around until the end, because I'll teach you 4 simple rules that will help you spot these problematic cookies in any store, all by yourself. Let's kick things off with number 8, chocolate creams from Keebler. The Keebler factory operates out of Illinois, making them a homegrown American product. You can find these chocolate sandwich cookies in just about every American pantry. The marketing paints a picture of a rich, chocolatey cream nestled between 2 crispy wafers. Families buy them for an afternoon snack, and grandparents keep a package in the cupboard for when the grandkids visit. The assumption is simple. A chocolate cookie must have chocolate as a primary ingredient, right? But the reality tells a very different story. When you look at the ingredient list, wheat flour comes first. That's followed by sugar and then vegetable fats, specifically palm and coconut oil. This is where it gets interesting. The package boasts about its chocolate flavor. However, the actual chocolate content is a minuscule 0.1%. That chocolatey taste you get comes mostly from low-fat cocoa powder and a cocktail of artificial flavorings. You're essentially eating palm oil and sugar with just a hint of cocoa. A look at the nutrition facts reveals between 496 and 506 calories per 100 grams. The total fat content is between 23 and 25 grams, with a shocking 16 to 17 grams of that being saturated fat. The sugar content climbs as high as 30 grams per 100 grams. To put that in perspective, the World Health Organization recommends that added sugars make up no more than 10% of your daily energy intake. Just 4 of these cookies will get you dangerously close to that limit. For any senior with heart conditions, that amount of saturated fat is a major red flag. American nutrition experts from sites like WebMD also point to another problem. These cookies contain sodium carbonate, also known as E500. In large quantities, this substance can irritate the lining of your stomach. Anyone dealing with acid reflux or stomach ulcers should be particularly wary of this additive. The addition of high fructose corn syrup adds another layer of concern. This industrial sweetener is metabolized differently than regular sugar, potentially putting a heavy strain on your liver over time. Medical researchers have linked its regular consumption to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You can find these cookies at Walmart, Target, Kroger, and Safeway all across the United States. They're affordably priced, which makes them a popular choice. But a low price tag doesn't mean good value when you start factoring in the cost to your health. Number 7 brings us to a product with a very misleading name: Classic Butter Cookies from Pepperidge Farm. The name itself suggests a simple, wholesome butter cookie. When American consumers hear butter cookies, you naturally expect butter to be the primary source of fat in the recipe. Butter has been a cornerstone of American baking tradition for generations. But the label tells a completely different story about what's actually inside the package. The ingredients list shows wheat flour, then palm oil, then sugar. So where's the butter? It finally makes an appearance way down the list at just 1.2%. That's 1.2% butter in a product called butter cookies. That's like calling a glass of water with a single drop of lemon in it lemonade. A popular U.S. food analysis site, Food Label Investigators, gave these cookies a scathing review. Their experts noted that most popular brands of so-called butter cookies unfortunately list palm oil before butter. They called palm oil a cheap filler that significantly degrades the product's quality. They specifically called out certain store brand versions for containing only trace amounts of actual butter. The word butter is featured prominently on the packaging. The marketing creates this illusion of traditional, wholesome American baking. The reality? These are basically palm oil cookies with some butter flavoring added for taste. A senior citizen buying these for their morning coffee, thinking they're getting a simple butter cookie like their mom used to make, is getting something completely different. The nutritional information shows 483 calories per 100 grams. The fat content is alarmingly high, with a significant portion of that being saturated fat. The sugar comes in at 19 grams per 100 grams, and the salt content is also noticeably high, at 0.63 grams per 100 grams. For seniors monitoring their sodium intake for blood pressure, this is a bigger deal than most people realize. High salt consumption is directly linked to hypertension, which affects over 60% of Americans over 65 years old. High fructose corn syrup makes an appearance here yet again, adding to the ultra-processed nature of this product. These cookies are sold all across the United States in major supermarket chains, including Walmart, Kroger, Target, and countless local grocery stores. Number 6 brings us to another buttery imposter, Lorna Doone shortbread cookies from Nabisco, a Mondelez brand. These popular rectangular cookies advertise butter as a key ingredient. They've been sold in America for decades and have powerful brand recognition. Parents remember eating them as kids, and now they're buying them for their own families. The ingredients list, however, reveals the truth behind the marketing. Wheat flour leads the way, followed by sugar, and then palm oil. Butter doesn't show up until much later, at just 6%. Now that's better than the 1.2% in our last example, but palm oil is still listed before butter on the ingredients list. Whenever ingredients are listed on any food product, they appear in order from the greatest amount to the least. That's an FDA requirement here in the United States. So palm oil being listed before butter means there is literally more palm oil than butter in these so-called butter cookies. The nutritional profile shows 487 calories per 100 grams. The total fat is 20 grams, with a whopping 11 of those grams being saturated. Sugar hits 21 grams. And yes, high fructose corn syrup is in the mix here too. It's the same problematic sweetener showing up in product after product. An ingredient called disodium pyrophosphate, also known as E450, shows up in the leavening agents. Food safety agencies worldwide recommend limiting phosphate additives in our diets. For seniors dealing with kidney problems or concerns about osteoporosis, phosphate consumption requires extra caution. An excess of phosphates can interfere with calcium absorption, weakening bones over time. The coconut version of these shortbread cookies is even more alarming. The calorie count jumps to 516 per 100 grams, with 27 grams of fat and a whopping 17 grams of that being saturated. That's significantly higher than the classic butter flavor. The use of coconut creates the illusion of a natural, wholesome ingredient. But the nutritional reality is far worse than the standard version. You can find these cookies at Walmart, Target, Kroger, and Albertsons all across the country. We're now at the halfway point of our countdown, and at number 5, the stats start to get seriously concerning. Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies made by Nabisco. These classic chocolate chip cookies carry that trusted Nabisco brand name. That iconic blue packaging signals quality and nostalgia to American consumers. Parents buy them thinking they're giving their kids a wholesome, classic chocolate chip cookie. Grandparents keep a package in the pantry for when the grandkids visit. But the ingredients list starts with wheat flour, then sugar, then palm oil. Eggs are next, followed by powdered milk. The actual cocoa mass and cocoa butter appear much further down the list. The product also contains glucose syrup, which is slightly different from high fructose corn syrup, but it's still a highly processed industrial sweetener. Both are converted rapidly into glucose in your bloodstream right after you eat them. The calorie count hits 490 per 100 grams. The fat content is 23 grams, with 12 of those being saturated. And sugar? It reaches a staggering 35 grams per 100 grams. That means over 1/3 of this cookie by weight is pure sugar. When you eat 100 grams of Chips Ahoy, 35 grams of that is sugar hitting your bloodstream. But the most alarming number, especially for seniors, is found in the salt content. A shocking 0.9 grams per 100 grams. That gives these cookies the highest salt content of any we analyzed in this investigation. The World Health Organization recommends no more than 5 grams of salt per day for adults. Eating just 100 grams of these cookies delivers nearly 1/5 of that daily limit from a single snack. Most people have no idea that cookies contain this much salt. The sweetness completely masks the salty taste. For older adults managing high blood pressure, heart failure, or kidney disease, this level of sodium poses a very real risk. Blood pressure medications become less effective when salt intake remains high. The combination of palm oil, high sugar, and high salt makes these cookies a triple threat to cardiovascular health. Each ingredient is concerning on its own. Together, they create a product that, when consumed regularly, will impact any senior's health markers within a matter of weeks. You can buy Chips Ahoy at Walmart, Target, Safeway, and Kroger, and through online grocery services like Instacart or Amazon Fresh. Coming in at number 4 is a global name with a massive local impact. Oreo Original from Nabisco. These iconic black and white sandwich cookies are sold in over 100 countries worldwide, including right across the United States. American consumers see them as a modern, international treat. They show up in school lunchboxes and office break rooms alike. The version sold on the American market has the same troubling ingredient profile as the versions sold across the globe. The ingredient list starts with wheat flour, then sugar, then palm oil and canola oil. The low-fat cocoa powder at a level of 4.5 to 4.7% is what provides that characteristic dark color. That deep black appearance comes from a minimal amount of cocoa, not from an abundance of rich chocolate. High fructose corn syrup makes another appearance in the recipe, adding to the sweetener content and the metabolic burden. The energy value climbs to between 472 and 486 calories per 100 grams. Total fat is 19 to 20 grams, with saturated fats at a level of 5.4 to 6 grams. This saturated fat number is actually lower than some other cookies on this list, as Oreo uses more canola oil, which has a better fatty acid profile. The problem lies elsewhere. The sugar content reaches 35 to 37 grams per 100 grams. That means over 1/3 of every single Oreo is pure sugar. The serving size on the package suggests 2 cookies. But who really stops at just 2 cookies? American nutritional studies show that most consumers eat 4 to 6 Oreos in a single sitting. This doubles or triples the sugar impact compared to the suggested portion size. The salt content is 0.76 grams per 100 grams, the second highest on our list after the Chips Ahoy cookies. American nutrition experts from sites like Healthline warn about the leavening agents in Oreos. Potassium carbonates and sodium carbonates in large doses can cause gastrointestinal bleeding, vomiting, and diarrhea. While these effects require high levels of consumption, seniors who regularly snack on Oreos throughout the day can accumulate these substances. The combination of high sugar, high salt, and palm oil creates a product that, when eaten regularly, will impact any senior's health markers. Blood sugar control becomes more difficult. Blood pressure management requires stronger medication. Cholesterol levels drift in the wrong direction. Oreo cookies are absolutely everywhere in the United States. Walmart, Target, Kroger, Walgreens, 7-Eleven, and gas stations all stock. Their sheer availability makes limiting your intake a matter of constant, conscious choice. Coming in at number 3 is a product that earned the lowest possible nutritional score in independent food rating systems. The classic Kit Kat bar from the Hershey Company. This is one of the most iconic American wafer bars. The brand has been a staple since the mid-20th century. Generations of Americans grew up eating these chocolate-covered wafers, and for millions, they represent cherished childhood memories. Factory workers in Hershey, Pennsylvania, have been producing them for decades. Many nutritional rating systems grade food on a scale from A, for the healthiest, to F, for the least healthy. These scoring systems are mandatory on food packaging in several countries to help consumers make informed choices. The Kit Kat bar consistently receives the lowest possible F rating. This F grade appears for a very good reason when you examine the ingredients. The list starts with sugar. Not flour, not cocoa. Sugar is listed first, which means it's the main ingredient by weight. That's right, this iconic American wafer bar is mostly just sugar. Wheat flour comes next, followed by palm oil. Chocolate liqueur does make an appearance, but the reduced fat cocoa powder constitutes a measly 1% of the total product. The chocolate coating itself contains soy lecithin and polyglycerol polyricinoleate, also known as PGPR or E476. A popular American health and fitness site specifically warns against this additive. Despite a lack of definitive studies, they advise against excessive consumption because it could potentially be linked to liver and kidney damage. When journalists inquired about the palm oil content, a Mondelez spokesperson stated unequivocally to a major financial news outlet that Mondelez International uses and will continue to use palm oil in its products. The company has absolutely no plans to change the recipe. The nutritional information reveals a shocking 530 calories per 100 grams. The fat content hits 29.5 grams, with 16.5 of those being saturated fats. Sugar clocks in at a staggering 38.5 grams per 100 grams. While the fiber content is slightly higher than other cookies, at around 3.6 to 3.7 grams, it does little to offset the mountain of sugar and fat. For older adults especially, the combination of sugar as the #1 ingredient and the high saturated fat content makes this treat a textbook example of empty calories. It delivers a quick burst of energy without any meaningful nutrients. This triggers blood sugar spikes and subsequent crashes, all while contributing to high cholesterol. Its nostalgic charm makes it a tough snack to give up, but its nutritional reality makes it nearly impossible to justify. This classic wafer is available practically everywhere. You can find it at Walmart, Target, Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, and 7-Eleven, not to mention countless corner stores and gas stations all across the USA. Annual sales easily reach into the hundreds of millions of units. Our #2 spot goes to the snack with the single highest saturated fat content of all the cookies analyzed in this entire study. Mountain Ridge Wafers from American Confections. The parent company is an international food conglomerate, but this brand is a staple right here in the American market. The brand name itself, Mountain Ridge, is meant to evoke a sense of American ruggedness and wholesome mountain traditions. The packaging reinforces this, suggesting purity and natural ingredients straight from the heartland. The actual ingredients list, however, tells a very, very different story. Vegetable fats, specifically palm and coconut oil, appear as the very first ingredient, before the flour, before the sugar, before anything else. The primary component of these wafers is a block of palm and coconut fat. That is what you are mostly eating when you consume a Mountain Ridge wafer. Sugar is listed second, with wheat flour trailing behind. Whole milk powder makes up 12% of the product, which is a respectable amount for a milk-flavored snack. The chocolate coating, however, introduces its own troubling cast of characters. More sugar, palm and shea fats, reduced fat cocoa powder at 17%, whey powder, and the emulsifiers lecithin and that now familiar PGPR E476. The nutritional profile is alarming for anyone even remotely concerned about their cardiovascular health. The energy value reaches 550 to 567 calories per 100 grams. This is the highest of any cookie analyzed in the entire review. To be clear, these are the most calorie-dense cookies in the study. Total fat is a staggering 34 to 37 grams per 100 grams. Saturated fats reach a shocking 22 grams per 100 grams. These 22 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams represent the absolute highest value among all the products reviewed. The World Health Organization recommends that saturated fats should not exceed 10% of your daily energy intake. For a standard 2,000-calorie diet, this translates to a maximum of about 22 grams per day from all food sources combined. A single 100-gram portion of these wafer bars delivers your entire recommended daily allowance of saturated fat in just one snack. Eating anything else with saturated fat that day pushes you over the established limit. Dr. Emily Vance, from the Department of Clinical Biochemistry at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, clarifies this issue. Palm oil, much like animal fats, has a very high content of saturated fatty acids. Research clearly indicates that excessive consumption of these acids increases the risk of obesity and cardiovascular disease. The evidence is unambiguous and consistent across numerous studies. The sugar content stands at 39 grams per 100 grams. The fiber, a mere 1 gram. It's essentially negligible. For senior citizens, especially those with diabetes, a condition affecting 25 to 30% of Americans over the age of 65, this is a dangerous combination. The mix of minimal fiber and high sugar causes sharp spikes in blood glucose. The sugar enters the bloodstream without the slowing effect of fiber, causing blood sugar to rise rapidly, insulin to surge, and then blood sugar to crash. These wafers are categorized as Nova 4, the highest level of food processing on the international scale. Regular consumption of ultra-processed foods is linked to metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions that includes high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol levels. Interestingly, the manufacturer removed partially hydrogenated fats from these wafers back in 2006. They successfully eliminated industrial trans fats from the recipe, which was a positive step. However, replacing trans fats with palm oil did not magically make the product healthy. They simply swapped one cardiovascular risk factor for another. The saturated fat content remains extremely high. These wafer bars are widely available at Walmart, Target, Kroger, 7-Eleven, and gas stations all across the country. Their low price makes them a frequent impulse purchase for many shoppers. And now, we arrive at number 1, the worst of all the products we analyzed. This one might be the most difficult to accept. We're talking about Mondelez's Orange Cream Delights, originally produced under the iconic Nabisco brand. Nabisco is one of the oldest and most respected American baking companies, founded in Chicago in 1898. These orange jelly-filled cakes, coated in chocolate, are an American institution. They appear at family reunions and holiday celebrations. They're given as gifts and shared at office parties. They seem to represent American baking tradition at its finest, yet they contain the highest percentage of sugar of any cookie analyzed in this entire study. Take a close look at the ingredients list. The very first ingredient listed is high fructose corn syrup. Not sugar, not flour, not chocolate. High fructose corn syrup leads the entire list. This industrial sweetener, cheaper than regular sugar and potentially more harmful, appears before anything else. Regular sugar is listed second. Chocolate, at a mere 15%, is third. And the chocolate itself contains palm oil and other fats instead of pure cocoa butter, along with emulsifiers and artificial flavors. The nutrition facts tell a striking story that cleverly conceals the real problem. The calorie count is lower than many other cookies, at 359 calories per 100 grams. The fat content is also relatively low, at 7.1 grams, with only 3 grams of that being saturated. At first glance, these numbers look pretty good, especially when you compare them to something like Oreos or Twinkies. Someone quickly scanning the nutrition label might even think these Malamars are a healthier choice. Then you see it, the sugar content. It's between 50 and 51 grams per 100 grams of cookie. More than half of every single Malamar is pure sugar. Nearly 51% of the product's weight is a combination of high fructose corn syrup and plain old sugar. When you eat a Malamar, you're mostly eating sugar with a bit of marshmallow, cookie, and a thin chocolate-flavored coating. American nutrition experts from Healthline were direct and unequivocal in their assessment. Due to the enormous amount of sugar, these cookies rank among the worst of all analyzed products. Having high fructose corn syrup and sugar as the top two ingredients doesn't bode well for anyone's health. Dr. Martha Mancuso, head of the Primary Prevention Lab at the National Cancer Institute, explains the specific danger of high fructose corn syrup. It's metabolized differently than regular sugar. The fructose component it contains is processed like fat in the liver, instead of being used directly for energy. A clear link has been observed in population studies between high fructose corn syrup consumption and an increased incidence of type 2 diabetes. She continues that manufacturers use high fructose corn syrup simply because it costs less than regular sugar. This economic advantage explains its widespread use, but this sweetener is rapidly converted into the most toxic type of visceral fat, which accumulates around organs like the liver and others in the abdominal cavity. This fat is biologically active and incredibly harmful. It causes atherosclerosis, which leads to cardiovascular disease, and it increases the risk of developing cancer. For seniors whose metabolism is already slowing down and who are at an increased risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, regularly eating products with high fructose corn syrup as the first ingredient accelerates the development of insulin resistance. The liver has to work harder to process the fructose. Fat accumulates around the internal organs, inflammation builds up, and the risk of disease skyrockets. Over 50 grams of sugar per 100 grams creates massive spikes and crashes in blood glucose. For seniors with diabetes, even a small portion can disrupt their blood sugar control for hours. A single Malamar cookie can throw their entire insulin management system into chaos. The jelly topping is essentially a pure sugar gel. The chocolatey coating piles on even more sugar, and the cookie base itself, it contains additional sugar too. Every single component is a delivery system for sweetness, contributing to the staggering total. That chocolate-flavored coating introduces another problem that goes beyond sugar. It contains vegetable fats like palm and shea oil instead of traditional cocoa butter. These cheaper, inferior fats drastically lower the quality of the product while simultaneously jacking up the saturated fat content. Real chocolate is made with cocoa butter. It's what gives it that rich, melting quality. Mass-produced chocolate-like coatings, however, use these vegetable fat substitutes as a major cost-saving measure. You can find these cookies practically everywhere, from Walmart and Target to Kroger, Albertsons, Safeway, and even on grocery delivery platforms like Instacart or Amazon Fresh. Their long-standing reputation as a classic American treat drives sales, completely overshadowing the grim nutritional reality. That concludes our list of 8 products to avoid. But simply knowing about the problems is only the first step. Information without action changes nothing. Here are 3 genuinely better alternatives readily available in American stores that offer a real improvement. First, consider baked goods from traditional, local artisan bakeries. These places often boast shorter ingredient lists and use real, whole ingredients. The focus is squarely on flour, butter, eggs, and sugar, not palm oil and high fructose corn syrup. These bakeries often maintain traditional recipes that have been passed down for generations. Yes, they will cost more than the mass-produced cookies you find on supermarket shelves. That price difference reflects real butter versus palm oil, authentic chocolate versus cheap vegetable fat coatings, and true quality versus industrial efficiency. Your body will absolutely notice the difference, even if your wallet does too. Sugar-free cookie brands, specifically designed for people with diabetes, are becoming increasingly common in American stores. Products sweetened with alternatives like erythritol or stevia provide that satisfying sweetness without the devastating impact on your blood sugar. Erythritol, for example, has a zero glycemic impact and is well tolerated by most people. You can find these products in the dedicated diabetic-friendly or health food aisles of larger supermarkets or at specialty stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts. While the taste might be slightly different from their sugar-laden counterparts, they effectively satisfy a sweet craving without the negative metabolic consequences. Homemade oatmeal cookies, using whole grain rolled oats, natural sweeteners like honey or dates, and real butter instead of palm oil, give you complete and total control over what goes into your body. The beta-glucan fiber found in oats actually helps to lower cholesterol, creating the exact opposite effect of consuming all that processed palm oil. Oatmeal cookies can be baked in large batches and easily stored for weeks, making them a convenient option. They take about 30 minutes to prepare and usually contain only 5 to 8 ingredients that you can actually pronounce and understand. Finally, here's how you can learn to spot these problematic cookies on your own by using 4 simple rules. These guidelines work every single time, in any store, for any cookie product you might pick up. Rule number 1. Check where sugar appears on the ingredients list. By law, ingredients are always listed in descending order by weight, from the greatest amount to the least. If sugar, glucose syrup, or high fructose corn syrup shows up in the first 3 spots, the product is basically just sugar. Don't even think about it. Just put it right back on the shelf. Rule number 2, count the total number of ingredients. If you see more than 15 ingredients, you're looking at an ultra-processed food, classified as Nova Category 4. High-quality cookies should have, at most, 8 to 12 ingredients. Think about it. Your grandma probably baked amazing cookies using just 5 things: flour, butter, sugar, eggs, and baking powder. If the list is longer than a short paragraph, it's an industrial concoction, not real food. Rule number 3, identify exactly what kind of fat is being used. Butter is great. It's a traditional fat that people have been eating for thousands of years. Sunflower oil is an acceptable, healthier choice. But palm oil? That's a major red flag and a reason to be cautious. And if you see vague terms like vegetable fats or vegetable oil listed without specifying the source, that's the worst sign of all. If a manufacturer refuses to tell you what kind of oil they're using, they're almost certainly hiding cheap palm oil, or maybe something even worse. Transparency is everything, and vague labels always mean cheap, low-quality ingredients. Rule number 4, use the Nutrition Facts panel for a quick reality check. More than 25 grams of sugar per 100 grams is